everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm thrilled you can join us today. We are going to be talking with the author who has written the book called Don't Walk Away, and it's all about a care partner's journey with her mother. And it's going to be a fascinating conversation. But before I introduce you to our guest, I always like to remind people to please go to alzheimerspeaks.com and check out our free educational resources. We have a ton of them. One of which you'll find is Dementia Map, which is our global resource directory as well. And our book, Betty the Bald Chicken. You can also find out about events and a couple of things that I do on a regular basis, our support groups. So I have a memory cafe that is virtual, so anybody can attend. That's the second and fourth Wednesday of each month from 1 to 3 o'clock Central Time. And then if you are in or near the Shoreview, Minnesota area, on the last Wednesday of the month, we do a Caregiver Connect program, and we meet from 10 to 11:30. It's a place where care partners can talk and be their authentic selves, as well as have a respite for their loved ones. So check all of those things out. And the other thing I want to introduce you to is Twiddle. Twiddle has great sensory products that are absolutely fantastic for your loved one. Anyone who's feeling a little anxious or uncomfortable, this can be a really calming tool that is portable. You can bring anywhere. Plus, they have Adaptive Wrap, which is a garment which closes in the back. So if you have someone who likes to disrobe or is just fidgeting with zippers or buttons all the time and breaking them or popping them off, you don't have to worry about that at all. And it works really well if you've got someone with limited mobility. So go to their website, which is the number 4 and then twiddlesplural.com. Now let's go ahead and meet Marilyn. I know this is going to be a fabulous conversation. Well, Marilyn, I'm so excited to have you back on the show and to be talking about your book. So thanks so much for taking the time and coming on to tell us all about it.
Oh, my pleasure indeed.
Well, some of our audience members might not know of you. Not everybody listens to every show we do. So why don't you give people a little background?
Well, I'm currently the executive director of Maude's Awards for Innovation in Alzheimer's Care, which is a wonderful organization that finds, celebrates, and shares innovations in Alzheimer's care. And before that, my original career was in the arts. So I was working in the arts, and I was fully expecting to continue that until I came back from graduate school. And my parents were developing dementia. So everything changed. Everything just flipped. And so I was raised, well, I can go into this later, but so everything flipped. And so then I started working in the arts. I applied arts to dementia. So I started doing art exhibits of art created by people living with dementia, which was interesting because the reaction was always, I had no idea. So it was just this wonderful thing, and it was inspired by my mother.
Oh, that's cool. You know, we do at Alzheimer Speaks a Dementia in the Arts where we interview somebody and they showcase their artwork. We get exactly the same thing. And it really slices through the stigma of they're not able to, oh my gosh, they should be commissioned, or I never knew, but people don't have
it's effortless. It's just effortless. People just go, oh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Let's talk a little bit about, you said not just your mom, not just your dad, but your parents were developing dementia. That's a double whammy, needless to say.
Yeah.
How did you cope with all of that?
Well, it was interesting because I was raised in this very strange family. Most of the people on my father's side all developed dementia when they hit 80. A few in mom's, they were a little bit older. And mother told us, she was very specific. She said, when we get Alzheimer's, I want you to walk away. We are not going to remember you. There's nothing you can do. We'll be in a safe place. So I want you to walk away. And all of us, I'm one of five kids, we all believed it. And that all changed when mom began to paint. And all of a sudden, because she was really bored after dad died. They've been married for like 74 years, best friends and married for 74 years. And so when dad died, she was really bored. And she lived in this really nice continuing care facility, which most people in this country cannot afford. But I'll get to that at a certain point. But she was bored, so I took her to this wonderful elderwise painting class for people living with dementia. And she thought it was a stupid thing to do. But she liked the companionship of the people around the table. And so I was stunned, as she was, by her paintings. All of a sudden, I saw these paintings and they were wonderful. Some of them were just flat out remarkable. And her paintings completely, as we were talking about before, completely changed my attitude towards dementia. Because before that, anytime I was dealing with mom, those words of walk away always echoed in my mind. But all of a sudden, I wanted to see mom. I wanted to see more of her art. And the more I saw of her art, the more it just cut through everything I thought I knew about dementia. And here was a woman who was not someone lost in the fog. She was living a rich and fun life. And her art, for me, it completely changed me in that it enabled me to see who she was. She was still here, living with joy and invention. And it was sort of this astonishing experience for me that I was able to realize that she was still here. And I was able to learn this very first important lesson, which is I let go of the woman I felt she used to be, and I embraced the woman who was with me in the moment. And she was not suffering from dementia. She was living with dementia. And that began my journey with mom, and that I wanted to be around her. It was this incredible path of discovery to be with mom. And it was so much fun.
Wow, that's a powerful first lesson. And it's interesting because, I talk with people all over the world like you do. And there's this realization, it seems like one thing happens that just
Mhm.
changes everything. But what I find fascinating is art is such a subtle way for that shift to happen because we're really not expecting it at
Yeah,
all. And, they always say, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. But when you see everyone kind of seeing that same thing and feeling that amazement, and I don't know about you, but I see people when they're doing art, they just kind of get into this zone, and that
exactly.
that dead kind of stare goes away, and you see the glint in the eye, you see the engagement, you just see them engrossed in something, and yet so calm and so peaceful and
Hmm.
so purposeful. And it's a beautiful thing to witness on so
Mom
many
started
levels.
to hum. As soon as she put the brush on the paper, she would start to hum. And then she was off. And she was sometimes she would paint what she saw on the table, but more often than not, she was painting what she saw in her mind's eye. So she started to transform things. So when she first started to paint, when she saw a flower, she painted a flower. But after the first year, she was transforming things. So when she saw a flower, suddenly she was seeing a dragon. And my favorite painting of all time is what I call the orange meanie. And it is her painting of an orange squash. And it's this jaunty little creature, but with a face that looks exactly like a blue meanie from Yellow Submarine. I mean, her artwork was just so interesting. And so I started taking pictures of everything she was painting and what she was painting because the transformation was so interesting. So the cover of the book is actually this odd little creature, and it's actually pink carnations.
Wow. Wow. When you were taking pictures, and just in the book itself, do you have a picture of what she was looking at versus what she painted so that
Yeah.
people can see?
Well, I don't have that in the book, but that's the name of the each painting I named for what she was painting.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So, so except for the orange meanie, I couldn't let go of the orange meanie because it was my favorite name. But everything else is named for what she was painting.
Okay, cool. Because I know there's so many different ways to approach this, and then there's the afterthought of how you could approach things and stuff. But I find it fascinating, and I loved when you had mentioned, and then she started to hum.
Hmm.
I've been doing a course on sensory care plans and getting people to realize those triggers um, that can help us engage and understand what's going on. And that hum of hers to me is saying, I'm in the zone
Yeah.
and I'm ready to go. And I think so often we overlook things like that, and they're really powerful and they're really meaningful, and they can also help us switch our belief in terms of what is happening in the moment when we
Hmm.
pay attention to them like that. So that is really, really neat. I would assume you had mentioned, the book is Don't Walk Away. I'm assuming that name came from your mom saying, just walk away.
Yeah. And I realized that no, you don't want to walk away. I mean, it's in the introduction in the book is sort of like for everybody at the beginning of their journey, may this be reassurance when they begin. But for everyone who may already have walked away, may this be a nudge to reconsider because it's for me, it's like, don't walk away. There's, there's, there's such, I mean, I know so many people who say, oh, well, they have dementia. It doesn't matter. They're not here. And it's sort of like, don't walk away. They're there.
Yeah. It's interesting that your mom had the insight to say that to you after, experiencing that with different family members and thinking there's nothing there, because she wasn't able, or there wasn't the opportunity for her to see a kind of a trigger switch like you did with the artwork that just changed everything up. And I know when I was going through my journey with my mom, there were two groups of people, and both were friends, or I considered them friends. And one group would ask, how's my mom doing? And they really wanted to know the answer. They wanted to know how my mom was doing, how were we doing as a family, and they were really concerned and they wanted to be supportive. And then there
Mhm.
was the other group of friends that would ask the exact same question, but they were asking the question only to give permission for me to never go visit again, because
Oh,
they were so uncomfortable with the disease and what they knew about it that they didn't know how to interact or how to respond. So Lori, just don't see her, because then I don't have to go through this turmoil. And I found that fascinating, just totally fascinating how people look at things differently, and it really is an emotional protection. And I think that's probably what your mom was trying to do for you, was
she was.
emotionally protect you and the family and say, it's okay, we're going
She tried to protect us from what she went through with her mother,
to.
but but there are people in my family who are terrified of this disease and wouldn't go see mother.
Yep.
There's people who wanted to. I mean, I was so lucky that I got to do this. I will forever believe that this is the most rewarding thing I have ever done. I mean, what a gift I had to go through this with mom. And I learned so much with her and from her. And we had so much fun. And then because she lived in this wonderful facility, I realized one day, because I would visit her, and this is back when I was sort of like, okay, I'm going to visit you, and, not that often. But I thought, of course, she looks forward to my visits. I'm her daughter. But then I quickly realized that actually she had a new family. And she was with that family a lot. And I was really lucky in that they were willing to accept me as a member. So I got another family, and I had all these adopted mothers in assisted living. And they were the coolest people. The best compliment I have ever received in my life was from Gloria, because I gave everybody shoulder massages. And one day I was giving a shoulder massage to Gloria, and she was going, oh, oh. And then she turned to me and she said, do you tuck your wings in a handkerchief when you're not here?
How cute. How
Yeah,
cute.
they were just great. So that this whole family I was a part of, and seeing them was so relaxing. I wanted to see them because partly it was fun, but partly it was just there were no there was no hurrying, there were nothing. It was just pleasant, and it was fun. And plus the ladies of assisted living, I called them. They were just so much fun.
I had a very similar experience where my mom was living, and I remember one time, someone asked me, "Who would you like to speak to who's passed?" And out of all the people in the world, it was a woman on my mom's floor that did not speak, and she had the most beautiful blue eyes, and she had this real pale, almost translucent skin.
Oh,
And she would be in a wheelchair, and she had a little table in front of her, and she would tap on that thing when she needed something. It would get louder and louder. And yet her eyes would get this glint in, when she would see something, and she was so alert, but people treated her like she wasn't there because she couldn't speak. And out of all the people in the world, even my, I'm going to get, oh, even my own parents, I would want to talk to her because she was just filled. There was this like bright light coming out of her. And yet it was, and I could connect with her, but she had so much more in there. And I could see that. And the only reason I could see that was because of my journey with my mom.
hmm.
With my mom, we were able to kind of pull that out and have that connection. But I just thought, oh my gosh, she's just busting at the seams. How do we get this out of her? And yet it was limited of what I could do
Yeah.
with her. But there is this sense of family. There was another woman there who, she was so cute. My mom was in a doctor's appointment one time, and she goes, "Oh, honey, come and sit with me." And she'd hold my hand, and she says, "Your mom's doing just fine. She's in a doctor's appointment. You don't need to worry about her. I watch over her all the time." I mean, there was just this compassion between them all. And so many people don't slow down enough to see that.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, slow down.
yeah. And it's so powerful, and it's so sweet. And I also found it was and this might sound really strange to some people, but a really safe place to go to as well,
Hmm.
because they
Yeah.
didn't judge. They were just thrilled you were there, you know,
Yeah.
and wanted you to be part and come visit. And, we don't have that in our world so much anymore. It's kind of wild out there when you step outside the door. And so,
Yeah.
so many lessons to learn
Um,
and appreciate.
Mom had two best friends,
Mhm.
Phyllis and Kathleen, and they were always together. And once we were up on the roof, and looking at the birds. They were talking to the birds and they were having all sorts of questions. And at the end of this time up on the roof, Kathleen turned to me and she said, "We enjoy each other."
Oh.
It was just, and Phyllis didn't speak,
Hmm.
but and once I heard her voice once when we were singing, and all of a sudden I heard her voice singing. And it turned out she used to be a music teacher.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just like, and Kathleen was very austere and very stern, but the three of them met sort of in the middle. And it was just this wonderful relationship they had. Every day when I would visit, it was just so much fun. And I would learn something every day.
Yep.
Just great.
It is. It's kind of like fairy dust. Once you
Hmm.
once you allow yourself to learn and be open to communicating on a different level,
Yeah.
and not being so nitpicky of everything has to be perfect and in order and on a linear time frame. I mean, it's kind of like, just entering Disneyland or something, everything is just magical, and there's opportunities and things that I think things that we just miss in everyday life.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, one of the things I learned was that for the beginning, mother would say to me, "What do you think Seattle's going to be like in 50 years?" And then she would change the time frame and said, "What do you think it'll be like in 500 years?" And I missed this opportunity at the beginning because I would come up with ideas. Well, it'll be like this, it'll be like this. And then one day, finally, I asked her, I said, "Well, what do you think it's going to be like?" And then the floodgates of her imagination just opened. She said, "Well, maybe we'll all fly." And she went on and on and on and on and on. And I think what I missed because her imagination sort of could have spun forward or backward or who knows where, but it was just fascinating to behold. And she had so much fun. So that's one of the other lessons I learned is please ask questions and listen. I mean, so many, so many. Mother we grew up a strict Presbyterian family. So compliments were incredibly difficult. You didn't give compliments to people. And if you did, if you received a compliment, it was best to deflect and change the conversation, preferably to something depressing. And mother was like that, except she started to give compliments, which we also didn't do in our family. And so one day she came out of her apartment and she looked at the hallway and there was no one there. And she turned to me with this little gleam in her eye and she said, "Do you know what this means?" And I said, "No, what?" And she said, "We're the most beautiful women in sight."
Love it. I love it. How cute is that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But if I told her on a regular basis, you play the piano so well, she would hit a wrong note just on purpose. And if I told her she was pretty, she would make an ugly face just to show me how wrong I was. But that was this rare exception. It was just all sorts of fun things like that. So I wrote down every single thing we did and said every time I was there.
I wish I would have done that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I wish I would have
because
done that.
you would forget these things.
Yeah, I did the big things, and I use those storylines in training and speaking and stuff, but there were so many little things, and I did
Yeah,
capture some things in photos and some in video, but boy, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it very, very differently
yeah.
because there are so many life lessons, and I don't know about you, but I found that they were way expansive beyond my mom, beyond where she lived. I mean, they were things I could apply in my everyday life
Oh, yeah.
all over the place.
Well, it's interesting because at the very end of the book, I say it turns out that everything that makes life better for people who are living with dementia works the same for everyone everywhere.
It's so true. So true.
Yeah.
And and yet we're so scared of it. And
Yeah.
you know, with the good, there's going to be bad. With happy, there's going to be sad. There's still going to be all of those moments, and you can't have a good without a bad. You can't have a happy without a sad. I mean, that's just the way the scale swings. it
Yeah.
it makes things relevant, and I think so often people forget that our emotions swing. They don't stay stagnant. But for so many years, my personal belief is we were sold a bill of goods through advertising that everything is horrible and there's nothing good to come out of this. And that's a tough stigma to beat.
Were you
um
born a Presbyterian?
I was Lutheran, so we're close.
We were
But
Calvinists, so that's a tough one.
yeah, but it's so sad because there's so much beauty in it. And I found my mom taught me to relax more. Like one of the things,
Mhm.
through her art, and it was very basic. She would do art like coloring with my 5-year-old child at the time.
Mhm.
And I probably told you this before, my listeners may have heard it, but it's worth mentioning again. Mom was watching my 5-year-old because that was really important for her to do, even though we were really nervous about it. It was like, okay, it's safe. It's going to be a short time. And I come in and they're both at the dining room table coloring. And as soon as I walked, into the doorway, they both held up their pictures, just so
Oh,
excited. You couldn't tell who was more excited, my mom or my 5-year-old. I mean, they
oh,
were just beaming. And I thought, what a gift to see my mom in a childlike state. I mean, everyone's afraid of becoming that childlike state. That's a pretty cool state to be in. You're carefree, you're happy, you just want to connect with people, you're looking for the good. There's a lot of positives to being in a
yeah.
childlike
What
state.
was so interesting about Mother is she absolutely, well, she seemed to have no conscious memory of having painted. And when you told her that her paintings were pretty or interesting or you liked them, she said, I didn't paint that. I don't do that. Once she turned to me and she said, I must have gotten that from your father's side of the family. But she thought painting was stupid. She didn't do it. And so it was really once, only once did she acknowledge a painting as hers. Only once. But most of the time it was like, no, I didn't do that. No. And I couldn't figure out why, but that's the way it was. But she was really good at it and she was really fast. And as soon as she finished a painting, she would get up, leave the room, and then she would walk around and then she would come back and see all these people painting and she would say, may I join you? And then she would sit down and paint again.
Well, I think part of the reason, that she didn't realize she did that, and I could be wrong, but my guess is if you go back in history, she was told that wasn't a valued thing to do, or she wasn't good at it. And, that builds up, kind of that wall around us where we're not going
Yeah.
to do that stuff anymore. We're not going to try. And so she's probably back in time where that wasn't acceptable or appreciated. And so that can't be mine.
Yeah.
you
It
know,
was really odd. I mean, they, in that family, they sang, they wrote poetry, they did all sorts of things, but not painting. I asked her younger sister, who lived to 100, and I said, did you ever paint? She said, no, no, we didn't do that. But they all played instruments. Mom played the piano, and she had this fabulous, she played at the end. She used to play music all the time, but at the end, she had her own little medley. And she started with Silent Night. And then at exactly the same moment, every single time, she would morph it into Polly Wolly Doodle all day. It was fascinating because I took videos of her doing it. And it was like always at that same moment, because she loved music.
mm-hmm. Yep. And she had the talent to be able to make that shift where most of us couldn't even
Yeah.
fathom, how to
Yeah.
do that. It was just a natural thing. And that's one of the things I love about the arts is when I interview people, they always say that they get in the zone. And a lot of times their spouse or their care partner has to like shake them loose to like, maybe you got to go to the bathroom, or it's time to eat, or it's time to go to bed, because they're so in the zone and so comfortable there. They all say that their symptoms just kind of melt away. And I have not had one person not say that. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's just, life is really good because there's no judgment at that point.
Yeah.
There's creativity, there's control, there's purpose. Um, it's a very powerful state, and it's a very powerful statement to the rest of us.
And when I would be giving shoulder massages to people, always at the ladies' table, but once I went over to the men's table and I started giving a shoulder massage to Harry. And all of a sudden, as I was doing this, he would start to go, uh, 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 and it turned into a song. And he started singing this song. And the whole dining room was just silent, wrapped with attention. And I had to stop at a certain point because his food was getting cold. So I finally stopped, and everybody in the dining room applauded. It was
Wow.
just lovely.
Yeah. Well, people can, they not only see the transition, but they feel it. I mean,
Yeah.
it changes the room. It really does. Well, let's talk about the book itself.
Oh, the book.
Who did you write it for?
Well, I wrote it first for caregivers,
Mhm.
beginning caregivers who were probably like me, who thought of Alzheimer's with dread, really not certain about what to expect, what could happen next, who are always sort of thinking to themselves, now what? And for those people, it is a book of hope and lessons learned and laughter. And and then for the people who are well into the journey, it's sort of similar, but it's recognition and respite and laughter. And again, hope that their loved ones are still here, living with purpose and joy. And it's those people. And in fact, it was interesting because I got this email from a friend of mine whose wife was developing dementia. And I said, okay, the first thing I want you to know, it's entirely possible, more than probable, that she will live with joy and purpose. And he said, but you're the first person who said that to me. And I said, well, it's true. And then he said, now what? And this is sort of, I thought to myself as I was writing this was, now what? And so the now what is, don't walk away. You will discover if you stay there, if you are actively involved, patiently involved with your loved one, you will discover that life, and you will discover you play a role in it, and you will both benefit. So it's for that. And then again, for everybody out there who thinks that people living with dementia are like, it's just a life of sorrow. It's sort of like, read this, you'll find the joy, you'll see the joy. It's okay. It's all right.
You know, when you when your friend asked that question about now what,
Now what?
the first thing that came into my mind was duplicate it. You know,
Was what?
duplicate the hope
Yeah.
and the joy for both of you.
Yeah.
This isn't a singular journey, and I think sometimes people think it is. But when you step and walk alongside someone, it becomes so rich, so deep, so intimate at levels that most people don't even know exist. I mean, it is just a really, like you said, it's a rich, rich gift. I think my mom's journey, for me, is the biggest gift I'll ever receive in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And people shake their head and go, how can that be? And it's like it teaches you so much, and it reframes the possibility of what's before you that you can apply in so many different ways throughout your life.
Yeah.
It really is very, very incredible. I like that you wrote it for the people, stepping in who have just heard that it's dreadful and overwhelming. And I love for the ones who have been there for a while that that need the recognition of, I think a lot of times they witness this stuff, but they don't talk about it. And when you don't talk about it, it kind of takes its power away.
Yeah.
But when you speak it, it gets bigger and larger, and it becomes engaging with others, and it's educational. I mean, it becomes so many things. And I think, to me, that's when people learn this wasn't for nothing, you
Yeah.
know, because it's a shareable experience, that can help other people as well as yourself, healing through the process of
And
the.
it's like that transition from the process of being a caregiver to being a care partner,
Mhm.
that you're in this together and that you're doing this together as partners. And both of your lives are enriched in that process.
Yeah. And that's, I love that the care partner or the care companion word versus caregiver, though that's the typical thing that everybody says. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to explain to people the difference. And again, the stigma attached with that caregiver word, it's all doom and gloom. And hey, I didn't sign up for this. Where a care partner goes, you know what, I did. I married somebody and I committed to them, or they're a parent or a sister, a brother or a friend, and this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to step in, I want to help. Um, but I think so often we don't think, we've been told that we can't learn from them and that there's nothing they can give us back. And that is so incorrect on so many levels, because
Yeah.
that soul connection is always there unless we choose to stamp it out or walk away from it.
Yeah. You walk away. I mean, it's true there's so many people who just don't think they have anything that they can contribute to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
That, and when you are in this together, um, then you realize that, they are helping you. Mother helped me learn how to live. I mean, originally one of the titles for this book was How Mom Taught Me How to Live,
Mm-hmm.
because she did. Um, I mean, she taught me how to slow down and listen to people and to put people first and to smile. I mean, I used to read um, all sorts of books about strategy and war. The Art of War was light reading to me. So for having, this experience with mom where I would slow down and smile, it was just magical.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I always used to tell people my mom is the safest place in the world for me to go, because she didn't
Mhm.
judge me. There
Yeah.
wasn't any of that. And that was a big realization, just in terms of looking at my whole world. And I had, I mean, lots of people that I love, but there was still judgment there. And with her, it was just gone.
Yeah.
When she hit a certain level, of progression, throughout the disease. What do you hope people walk away from and take away from the book?
I hope two things. One is I hope that they realize that people who are living with dementia are valuable people, that they are deserving of and needing our support to live with happiness and to thrive. Um, that you don't want to walk away. And the other thing is that we as a society have basically abandoned people. So many diseases, but we've abandoned people who are living with dementia, that people are pretty much on their own. Mom
Mhm.
and dad were among the very few who could afford this incredibly nice continuing care facility. It was so nurturing. It was so joyful. But so many families are operating without a net,
Mhm.
that care partners need help, need support, need tools. And I, if I do anything, it is that I want people to help support caregivers in this country to be, to have the tools they need to enable their loved ones to thrive and to live with happiness, and to believe that that's possible.
Yeah. Well, and I think so often, we categorize things up one side and down the other. but they think caring for a cancer patient or a young child or an elderly person or someone who's had a stroke or has dementia, that's a really easy excuse to say, I don't know how to help them because I have not been on that journey.
Yeah.
When there's a basic of care that we have given and we have developed since the day, we were conceived, and that never ever breaks.
Yeah.
People always ask, in terms of when I say, from the moment conceived, but I'll use this for an example. When someone's pregnant, it changes the conversation. All of a sudden you're patting a belly, you're talking to a tummy, they kind of take over the conversation. And there's studies that even this baby in a belly knows the music it heard when it was in the tummy. It recognizes voices. I mean, our connections are so deep and we don't give it credit, and that doesn't go away. It's the same coming in as going out. Those connections are there, but you will miss them if you choose not to look for them.
Yeah. 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 It was, they will also tell you a very funny story. Mother made me laugh on her deathbed, which is not easy to do.
Mhm.
And they were raised in this Scottish Presbyterian banking family during the Depression, and they hated Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They just hated him. And every time mom heard the name Roosevelt, she would go, we didn't like him. And this was like the mantra of our childhood. And so where she lived, they overlooked the Roosevelt Hotel, which was named for Teddy, but that didn't matter. And she would go, we didn't like him. And she's on her deathbed. She is in a coma. She is 2 days from death. And my brother and my sister and I are standing around her. We're singing to her and we're telling her we love her. And I mentioned her dislike of the Roosevelt Hotel, and she flinched. But I knew she could hear me and I knew she could understand me. So I sat next to her for the next 2 days and held her hand and talked.
And what an honor that is,
Yeah.
to be able to be there. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. If you are just tuning in right now, we are talking with Marilyn Raichle, who has written this beautiful, beautiful book called Don't Walk Away. You can get that on her website, which is don'twalkaway.net. You can go to Amazon and pick that up. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn as well. But what we've been talking about, I think, is just such powerful stuff, because we are told to walk away. Don't worry about it. That they don't know you, all of these things, and they always will know you. They just might not be able to speak it, but they will know if you are a safe, comfortable person to be in their presence. And if you slow down, you'll be able to see and acknowledge those communications, even though they've changed. I do want to just mention a group called Q for Good, which is a webmaster. In fact, I personally use them. They are absolutely fantastic if you are looking for someone who understands you, especially if you're like me. I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to web design and the back room. I don't know all the terms and the technology, but I know what I want fixed. And they're really good at communicating with a person like me. They're really good at working with people who are purpose driven. That is one of their missions, to make the world a better place. And again, I know people are always looking at making changes to websites, but if you want somebody who communicates well, who will relax you, which I know for me, there were days I thought I was going to pull my hair out with issues over the years with different companies that I've worked for. These guys are fabulous. So check out Q for Good. And if you mention my name, you can get a 10% discount as well. But I always like passing things along that I think are working well. So with that, let's get back to our conversation, because I want to talk about, and we've touched on this already, but let's dive a little bit deeper into the importance of art And you worked in the art industry prior, to this whole caring role with your mom, and saw the power in that. How would you describe how important art is to us as human beings and as a form of communication?
Well, it's difficult, first of all, because I was raised a Calvinist and we didn't think that it had much importance. So I came to this really because of mother. Um, and my sister is an artist and my niece is an artist. Um, that art opens up a world. It opens up a world that we may not be aware that we're seeing. If you are actually able to paint or draw or in any way create art, which I am not because I criticize myself constantly, but it is so glorious. Matisse is my favorite artist. And to go to a museum and to see art, to see really, really beautiful art, it transports you. I can't explain. Well, I'll try, but for someone who was raised to think that art was like, it was a revelation to suddenly realize that I was sitting there communing with paintings and enjoying them and having them speak to me. Um, my entire apartment is filled with art. I actually counted my niece's art is now, I have more of her art in this apartment than I do Matisse, which was, something. But her art is just extraordinary. And mother's art. Mother's art changed my life.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I know I love going to the museums, and I love art no matter who's doing it. I
Yeah.
just find it fascinating, the creation process, and talking to people if I'm able to do that, or just seeing, the different things I see in it,
Yeah.
which when I first look at a piece I might not see, but as you stare a little longer, things become different. And I love the like dementia friendly tours that they're doing in the museums now that are so powerful, or just a regular guided tour, dementia or not, where it gets people talking and sharing about an artist and why they created and how people see things differently. It just opens up the door to possibilities that
Yeah.
and to me, when you have possibilities, you have hope, and when you have hope, to me, that leads to joy. And so they're all just kind of weaved together in that, and they're very subtle many times in terms of the way that it hits us. So it's a comfortable way to learn and explore too, I think, for so many people.
Yeah. And with mom, because of my relationship with art is really focused on mom and all of her companions because everybody who painted in that class all had their own distinctive style. So you immediately knew who was painting what. Um, and at one point, really late on, when everybody was painting, and mom was probably 95 at that point, and they were painting, and all of a sudden, Flora was with them. And she didn't often paint, but they started with gold and yellow paint. And then all of a sudden they introduced red. And Flora just freaked out. She said, "Red? That's a horrible idea. It's going to ruin your painting. Don't do it. Don't do it." And then she sort of looked at me forlornly and sort of calmed down, and everything calmed down. And everybody was just painting away. And then all of a sudden they introduced blue. And then things just blew up again. And I often wondered to myself, because I couldn't ask her, couldn't get an answer, why she was so upset. Was there a painting she had in her mind that she wanted to paint? It was doing something subversive to her paints, to her painting. And I was never able to figure out why, but I just found her reaction to color so incredibly fascinating.
Or was it the scarlet red color and what that meant in certain generations?
Yeah,
And I mean, you don't know, and so it is pretty fascinating to be able to
yeah.
see all that. Um, as far as being a care partner, if you had to sum it up in a couple of points, how has it changed your life?
I was raised and for many, many years was very, very driven, very competitive. And the whole idea of doing things together was sort of alien to me. You had to sort of dominate and win. And being a care partner, it sort of enabled me to let go of those sharp edges. I always used to say, from fists clenched to hands open. That's the basic change and it was easier for me to incorporate that into my personal relationships. Work was more difficult, but the more I was able to be around mom, and mom had offered me a sort of blueprint on how to live a life, which was to smile and think of others first. And it was it was hard for me not to begin any conversation with, oh, and this is what I'm doing. Instead, I started to learn about, no, 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 you don't start with yourself. It's not about you. It was just this learning process of being around someone who was people who were so generous, so kind, and learning how to be their friend, their partner. I became more generous and more kind. I'm not perfect, but I am much better than I used to be. As I would say to people, I'm a much nicer person than I used to be. And I will be forever grateful for the change that being a care partner has made in my life and in me as a person.
I love that. I think it's, the letting go of control and the flexibility and you know, the simple act of kindness has such a huge ripple
Yeah.
effect. It really is underestimated, the power of kindness and the world that can be before us, if we step that up. And it's, when you treat someone kind, they want to treat the next person kind.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just has such a cool effect, and it makes you look at the world different. It gives you a peace
Yeah.
inside as
Yeah.
well.
It was and when mom died, and then I had a new quote mother was Evelyn, who was 105. And that was another learning experience. And I learned this from mom that Evelyn was in hospice at the end. And she was lying on her bed. And I knew she could hear me because of mom. And I knew she could understand me. And I was telling her that I loved her, which is something we never used that term love in our family. But I was using it now. And she opened her eyes and she said, life is so beautiful. And then she closed her eyes again.
Wow.
It was just, and that is an experience that I would not have had if I had not been able to be with mother and to believe that I could love and be loved.
Very cool. Well, in wrapping up, we have been talking with Marilyn, the author of Don't Walk Away, A Care Partner's Journey. And she's just shared some beautiful insights and stories with us that I really urge you to go pick up her book. You can get that on Amazon. You can visit their website, which is don'twalkaway.net. You can check her out on LinkedIn as well, and we'll have all that information in the show notes for you. And of course, as always, I'm going to ask you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share the show. There's a nugget in here somewhere for pretty much everybody. And don't deny that to somebody else. We need to share good solid resources that can really help change somebody else's lives. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily know where everyone is in their journey, but that doesn't mean we should limit the resources that we know about. So give a hand out, lift somebody up that you might not even know. They just might be in your sphere of influence. And so often it's those people who need us more so than the people that we know. And so
Yeah.
don't miss that opportunity. I also want to just give you a moment too. You're the executive director of Maude's Awards. If you want to say a little bit about that.
Yeah. The awards will actually be announced in September. We had 165 applications this year. We were a little overwhelmed. Maude's Awards is this extraordinary organization that was created by Richard Ferry in honor of his wife Maude, who developed dementia in 2013. And the goal is to discover innovative practices of care and programs that can enrich the lives of people who are living with dementia. And to share them, because we also do a book every year, basically saying these are all these wonderful things that have come to our attention. It is our goal to make life better for people who are living with dementia and their care partners. So you can go to Maude's Awards, MAUDES, maudesawards.org to find out more. And we'll be announcing our 5th anniversary's winners in mid-September.
Oh, exciting, exciting. Well, keep up the great work with that. I'm looking forward to see who the winners are this coming year. Well, anything that we haven't covered, Marilyn, that we missed?
Just don't walk away from anything. Just calm down and offer love and understanding and patience and listen. Don't walk away.
Don't walk away. I love that. We're always stronger than we think we are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always something that we learn. And this will end up being one of those blessings that will really surprise you, because it's a gift wrapped in a really strange package. That's how I always tell people.
I mean, the art is fabulous and the stories are wonderful, and it's a refreshingly different take on a life, on relearning about a life with dementia, because it's joyful.
Yep.
And a lot of it is very funny. Mother was a very funny person.
Well, and humor is one of those things so often that people let go of. Yeah. And it really is, it's the glue that keeps it all together, I think. So
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, again, Marilyn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for, putting all the work it is to gather your story and put it into book form to be able to share it even easier with others.
Yeah.
And again, I would encourage people to check it out on Amazon. Again, don't walk away. So thanks, everyone. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Lori.
Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.